Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm super excited about this week's conversation we need to have. As we know, 2020 has been a year for the history books. Pandemics, protests, police brutality, the day of reckoning as relates to the issues of race. So we know that that can all be overwhelming. So what I've done, I put together a great panel of conversationalists who are creatives in their own respective fields. And we are super excited to have Candace Lewis. She's the founder, CEO of Clue Entertainment, an entertainment company founded with the artist in mind. And from the beginning of an artist's career to the pinnacle of their success, Clue Entertainment has created a roadmap to success. Candace Lewis. We also have Matthew Odom. He's an award-winning commercial photographer who has worked with the likes of National Geographic. He's worked with Bloomberg. He's worked with the New York Times, the Associated Press, and Wall Street Journal. Welcome, Matthew Odom. And we have Tyrus Turner, who should be coming on pretty soon. He's the CEO of the Indie Music and Arts Festival, a for-profit business who gives back to the performing arts students in his local community. And we have Dr. Crystal Rucker. She's been granted the opportunity to be the first gospel artist featured as a singing hologram in the Legacy Museum from enslavement to mass incarceration. It's located in the historical city of Montgomery, Alabama. Her melodious voice can be heard singing Walk With Me, Lord, and This May Be the Last Time. The voice of Dr. Rucker has impacted radio on Bishop Paul Morton's Be Blessed, Jonathan Nelson's I Am Healed, her soul-stirring worship ballad, You Deserve, and her latest single, It Is Well, written and produced by award-winning producer Kenneth Shelton. It is on all digital platforms now. She'll tell us more about that in a second. And we have Miss Celeste. She's an educator, a poet, spoken word artist, and a motivational speaker, mentor, and therapist. She founded She Speaks Academy mentoring program for young women between the ages of 9 to 12 in 2018. Thank you all for taking the time out to have this conversation. How's everybody doing?
Doing well.
Doing well.
That's
Doing
good.
well.
Glad to be here.
That's good. So we're gonna go ahead and get the ball rolling because my dad is a bishop, so I can talk for a while, but we're gonna narrow this down to an hour, 45 minutes to an hour.
Thank you, Lord.
Yes. And so I'm just happy that my sister Candace is on with us. You know, one of my daughters. So I'm just really excited that she's going with us. But so we're going to go ahead and get started. My very first question: if you had to make a facial expression highlighting what 2020 looks like, what would that facial expression look like?
I agree.
Listen, that was.
I agree with Matt.
That pretty much sums it up, right?
Yeah.
I agree with Matt.
2020 has been a year for the books.
Ooh.
And so I thought it was very important that I get some creatives together to talk about some things for the next few minutes. So who has been some of y'all's greatest artistic influence, be it photography, be it music, be it poetry? Who has been some of your greatest influences as far as the creative arts are concerned? We'll start with Candace.
As relates to overall, or
overall
current time, or
no, just overall, just overall.
Oh wow. That's
just name 3 for me.
3 overall.
Yes.
Artists, I would say Billie Holiday. I would say Aretha Franklin, and I would say Kanye West.
Okay.
All the Kanye, all the different people that Kanye West represents.
Yeah.
He's a couple different people.
For those who don't know, it's 3 of them that exist.
It's 3.
But,
We know. Kanye, Yeezy. Jesus.
Matt, who is
All
3
of them.
artistic influences for you?
3 artistic. I would probably 3 is. We have to think about it, but I can tell you 2 out the gate. Golden
Yeah.
Park, Michael Jackson, who's a fellow Virgo, by the way, and
Virgo Squad. Okay.
yeah. So I'm trying to think of who my third one be. You caught me off guard with that one.
Yeah.
Hard question.
Yeah, it's a tough one when you're trying to think of so many creatives because it's just so many people with creative
Right.
influences out there that it's hard to just narrow down 3. But I just Mike's work ethic was insane. If you got a chance to watch some of his like documentaries or whatever, Mike was extremely. He's a typical Virgo because I mean his work ethic was just insane with the way he did everything, and then of course Golden Parks laid the groundwork for Black photographers, especially in the mainstream. So part of what I do is I owe a lot to him for opening that avenue for me. So
Okay. Miss Celeste, who are some of your greatest artistic influences?
I would have to say Nikki Giovanni. She's one of my favorite poets. Her Maya, right? Like if I could make a duo and be like 2 people, those are my biggest when it comes to spoken word and poetry. But I would also say definitely Tupac Amaru Shakur, as well as Marvin Gaye.
Okay. Why Marvin Gaye? I'm curious.
Marvin Gaye, I think that, the therapist in me always thinks about who he was as a man outside of the music. And I just feel like he was such a beautiful creative that was so misunderstood and even disliked by people that were supposed to be close to him, which I think that a lot of artists still on a regular basis. And he just created such beautiful music that is timeless. I mean, you could listen to it in any decade and be like, still beautiful, still dope.
Okay. Dr. Rucker, some of your greatest musical influences.
Oh wow. I have so many that it's hard to narrow it down to 3, but I'm glad Celeste mentioned Marvin Gaye. I listen to him a lot. But my greatest, because I sing gospel, is probably the Clark sisters to start with. Been very influential in my life and a part of my past and present and future. I would say Aretha Franklin.
Okay.
And then I would go back to the gospel side. And most of them have hailed from either Houston or Detroit. But I'm going to stick with Detroit. Well, no. I'm going to go all the way to Oakland. I'm going to say the Hawkins family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Celeste, define creativity in your own words. When you hear the word creativity, define that for us.
I feel like when I think of creativity, I think of just being completely liberated. And when you think about liberation, you think about freedom to do and just create whatever you want, just whatever feels good to you to move on it. Whether you do poetry, song, music, art, just to actually do something with whatever you feel in your spirit. And I just feel freedom. When I think about creativity, I think about people that are unafraid to just release. They don't have any boxes around them saying you can only think this way, you can only do this, you can only do that. So really, I think about when I think creativity, I just think about a liberated soul that does whatever they want to do that makes them feel good, brings joy to life.
Okay. So, anybody else want to add to that definition, or have another working definition that you use to guide your work? Because I think that's Go ahead.
I would say imagination.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say imagination.
Okay. So,
ideas.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said, or ideas.
Yeah. So, Candace, historically, as it relates to music, help us understand the significance of musicians and singers throughout history. Like, do you see a reflection of our culture in today's music, like we did back then with the James Browns, I'm Black and I'm Proud, and the Marvin Gayes and the Aretha Franklins? Do you see that in our music now compared to then?
Not as prevalent as it was then, and not as purposeful as it was then. And I mentioned Billie Holiday, me being a fan of Billie Holiday. In 1939, when she released "Strange Fruit," she was became one of the voices giving awareness to the people up north what was going on in the South. The whole song is about, you know, the lynching of Black people that was going on in the South, and it was so heavy at the time. And then she re-released it again in 1965, and it became an anthem, you know. And like I say, you know, with music nowadays, it's more so how you feel. You will have songs of protest, you know, like, you know, what's going on, you know, that was shortly after, that was during Vietnam, actually. And you know, Marvin Gaye was protesting the Vietnam War. You know, Sam Cooke, you know, when he released A Change Gonna Come, you know, that was right after Martin Luther King was killed and was shot. And you know, after he had experienced, you know, racial injustice himself, not being able to stay in the hotel, not being able to eat in the restaurants. And so I think that artists now more so go along with the trend of the time, more so than actually making statements. And every now and then you have one or two that'll do it, but because the freedom of speech is kind of in a funny place right now, as far as, you know, being able to express yourself, didn't come with as much backlash as it does now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you have to be very careful when you're an artist, you know, as saying things and addressing things that, you know, attached to your brand, and then your record sales go down, you know. So I don't know if it's as intentional now as it was then. I did hear the a song, a rapper by the name, hip hop artist by the name of Lil Baby. He, you know, released a song reflecting these times. And so every now and then there will be someone that Kanye released a project, I believe a single yesterday, with a visual reflecting these times. And so not as prevalent as it was before, but you do still have some that are for being able to express themselves through art, through song.
Okay. Dr. Rucker, music is a powerful tool, as you know, being a singer who has been on several different stages. So I wanted to ask you, because music has the ability to create a neurological phenomenon called corpus callosum, and that's pretty much where it stimulates both parts of the brain. And it's one of the only things on earth that can stimulate both sides of the brain at the same time. So my question to you, as a well-known, well-renowned gospel artist, why do you think it's important that gospel music gets more attention than it's been getting? Like, what role does gospel music play in this era that we're in, as far as sending a message to listeners who are not necessarily Christians, but need to hear the message that gospel music has?
I think it plays a great role now, especially in this day that we're in, 2020. I believe because we have so many things that are going on, gospel music is very inspirational. It's hopeful. And even if it gives you a testimony of what has happened in someone's life, it always ends in victory. And right now, we need to see victory. We need to hear victory. We need to have something to hold on to, something to believe in, something to trust in, something to, and because gospel music gives us all of that, it's inspirational. First of all, it's the songs that are written from the Word of God. And the Bible is good news. So it's just good news in a song. So that's the reason why I feel like it's so prevalent right now, because if we don't need anything else to hear, nothing else bad, we need good news. We need some good news. So that's what I would say.
Okay. And so you said something that was so key, and I've never thought about that, how you said gospel music always end with victory. No matter what's going on, Christians believe that in the end we win. And that's right. And that's not just a shouting point for church members. That's really a biblical principle that Christianity is built on, because of the finished work of Christ on the cross.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's a very interesting perspective. And so for Celeste, since we're talking about creativity in the arts, you are an exceptional spoken word artist. I've listened to some of your work and I've seen you perform a few times. What is different about spoken word and traditional sung performance in poetry? Explain that to some of us who are listening who may not understand the difference.
I think when you think about poetry, that is written word. That is what you're actually writing down. Those are the thoughts that go on the written word. When you think about spoken word, you're actually giving life to it. You're saying, hey, listen, these are words that were on paper, but now let me breathe into them. Let me give them a heartbeat. Let me let you know exactly what it is. And I think very much like song, spoken word is very it's thought provoking, and it brings awareness to you. It makes you think about things. Sometimes when you read something, you don't get the same takeaway. Sometimes you walk away thinking, "Oh, that was kind of cool," but if something breathes life into those words, it's a whole different perspective. You have to see, like, wow, this is really dope. This is really deep, and this really hit home. And I think with spoken word artists, what we have the unique ability to do is just to reach people on a level that sometimes people may not even really be thinking they're gonna be moved by. You go to an open mic and you're gonna hear different spoken word artists, but you always got that one spoken word artist that says something and just it's like, God, I felt that in my spirit. You felt that so hardcore. And I think spoken word artists, much like singers, have the ability to take you somewhere different in your thought process, and it lingers with you those words and the way that they were spoken. It stays with you. So I think when you think about spoken, you're really thinking about heart, giving breath to words and breath to a whole vision and a mindset and idea.
Okay. So, and Matt, for you, I know that you're a world-renowned photographer, and so my question for you is, Steve Pinker, who is a cognitive psychologist, and he said this about photographers. He said the art of photography is all about directing the attention of the viewer. So my question to you as a photographer, what should photographers be directing our attention to? What should we be focused on the bigger scheme of things as a photographer?
The story that's being told. A lot of times when I photograph, at least when I do photography, is I try to tell a story. Anybody can take a picture. I always say, you got pictures, you got camera phones now, so anybody can take a picture, but can everybody tell a story? And in times like this, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, it was important. I know as an African American photographer for us to be on the front lines, and I was part of the people that was calling for black photographers to get out there on the front lines. If I hadn't, if I'm immune deficient, so I can't go out there in the middle of a pandemic and shoot. But you can be rest assured that if that was not the case, I probably would have been on the front line shooting during the protest, because I believe that as an African American photographer, our story must be told our way, especially when it's down to what the message that we're trying to get out. I think that is something that in my field that I've started to notice a lot of the last few weeks, and I'm seeing it. And actually, I was already seeing it beforehand, because a lot of people don't know National Geographic did not have a lot of black photographers photographing for them, and so when they reached out to me a couple of years ago, I was I think maybe the third or fourth black photographer that had ever worked with them before, and they realized that our stories need to be told by us, because we see those stories different than what a Caucasian photographer would see. It may go down and photograph, like I had to go photograph the lynching memorial in Alabama. He's going to see it a completely different way than I would. So anytime that I work or I do a story or do an assignment, I want to portray the story, the subject, and I want to be able to tell that story through visual means, so that when people look at a photo, they're able to easily see what's being told, or what message is being delivered.
So when when you were working with National Geographic Explorer, how many Black photographers do you think they had on staff before you?
Now I could be wrong, but like I said, I think that when I shot for them, at least on the freelance side of things, it was honestly me, Ruddy, there's another fella. I want to say it's like maybe 3 or 4 at best. And that's maybe 5 or 6, and I'm being generous. I could be wrong, but that just goes to show another thing is that we don't have enough of us in the arts. You know, I've been talking to a lot of people, especially before COVID hit. I was talking to someone recently and was telling him, I said, you know, we got to get African Americans back involved in the art, and I'm talking like as far as just simple drawing. You'd be surprised at how much pent-up frustration that our children are going to school with because they don't have an outlet.
Wow.
They don't have an outlet. And so, you know, all of us grew up in an era where we went to school. It was always, you know, home ec. You had all these different things. You had different outlets for students to find who they were. Well, now it's just basically go to school, be STEM, and that's it. You know, you be STEM, and that's it. So you've got a bunch of people, and I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that work in those fields that hate their job. But then you find out they quit their jobs and they become a photographer or whatever. You see that clearly this is what it was meant to be doing in life, or an artist, you know. So I think that us pushing the initiative to get our kids and back involved in the arts will not only help them on an academic level, but also will help them on a holistic level to where they're able to, like I said, channel that energy into something that's positive.
Absolutely. I definitely agree with what you're saying, Matt, because I know for me as an educator, you know, I work in special education. All my kiddos have emotional behavior disorders. But I tell you, the moments that they thrive the most is when you're allowing them to be truly creative as they are, be it singing a song, be it creating a poem, be it painting something, creating something. And when they feel like they have true contribution to the world that you actually care about, it becomes, okay, you know, I'll calm down for a minute as long as I can. If my reward is going to be go create something, or I can go do this, or I can perform in the show, okay, great. So that's like so big, and I don't think we listen to the children enough or stimulate that creativity. I'm really glad that you mentioned that.
But you know, another thing too is that, and I've noticed this because I take care of my grandmother, and so a lot of times we got her coloring books, adult coloring books. If you notice, a lot of it's therapeutic.
Absolutely.
That's right.
It's therapeutic.
That's right.
And so I know, especially for me, one of the first things once the pandemic, you know, once everybody started opening up and started going back to work a little bit, I can tell you I actually started feeling better because I was somewhat depressed sitting in the house. You know, when I'm a homebody, anybody knows me knows I'm a homebody. But after a while, you know, I just like, look, I just want to photograph something, whether it be a car rolling down the street or something. Yeah. So
I think that's very important for our next line of conversation. Tyrus, thank you for coming on. I know you had some technical difficulties. Tyrus Turner, everybody. So I'm not sure if this platform can hold the collective greatness that is on here right now, but we're just going to hope and pray that it can hold up until we're done. So I want to talk about creative and injustice. When you hear the term injustice, what comes to mind? And anybody can jump out there and answer this question. When you hear the term injustice,
years of oppression.
Okay, Dr. Rucker.
I would just say wrongful acts, criminal acts.
Okay, Ms. Celeste.
I always think about the two words lack of equity, lack of fairness, lack of equality, lack of everything that actually is common and good and that everyone deserves. So I always think of lack of.
Okay. And Tyrus, you want to jump in on this one?
Yes, man. I always think of, like she said, unfair.
Fair,
not
lack
given
of
the same laws as the next person, and so that's kind of my take on injustice.
Okay, so as creatives, and I would consider myself a creative as well. As a creative, when we see certain things, most creatives psychologically are empaths, where they take on the emotions of that moment. So when we see things like, you know, an innocent black man getting killed in the street, or when we see things like, you know, a 12-year-old getting shot for playing with a toy gun, when we see news of the police busting into someone's house with a no-knock warrant, the wrong house, and gunning someone down in cold blood, for creative, that creates it creates a bittersweet moment, because it's the driving force behind our passion. Because like Candace was talking about earlier, we define those moments through our craft and through our creative networks. So with that being said, as creatives, how do you all deal with the idea of seeing that so consistently on the news? Like when you see someone get shot in the street, when you see someone who is literally killed in the process of 8 minutes and 46 seconds, when you see that, how do y'all cope with the weirdness of injustice as creatives? How do you not get overwhelmed by seeing that?
Well, for one, I can tell you, you know, for my degree is in social work, so in mental health as well. So I think she might know I'm getting ready to go with this. But when you see this so much, and you see it on a consistent basis over and over and over, I don't think people realize how much post-traumatic stress that as a community that we've taken on over the last 19 years, and then, you know, and if you talk about systemic racism, we're talking all our lives, because we've all been. So I think I knew for me, especially with George Floyd, that was the first time in a while that I actually felt rage, because I sat down and watched that video, and I was just kept saying to myself, is anybody going to do something? Is anybody going to do something? You know, you got people standing there, we got the cops standing there, you know. Then it's been 110 days since Breonna Taylor's been killed. They're still walking around. That's absurd. It's absurd. That's ridiculous. So when you see this, as a creative, I can tell you myself, it makes me want to go out and tell stories of hope. I know you probably saw my Facebook status early today. I don't know if you saw that, but you probably saw my Facebook status. Well, I did an assignment yesterday, and it was for another magazine. It was for Georgia Grown, and basically they're doing a story about this guy who has a farm, who takes in veterans, rehabilitates them. They run a farm, XYZ. Underlying that, what I thought was the real deal was, we got to talking off the cuff. The guy runs the farm, but he uses heirloom seeds. Well, a lot of people, and he blew my mind. I mean, literally, I sat down when we talked about it. He was showing me plants or whatever. He said, "Well, here's the plant that the Africans brought to the United States, to the continent, and they taught the Indians how to use." And he showed me the seeds, and I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yes." And he said,
"So." Because I want to talk about that, but I also want to sort of stay on track. So I have another question for Dr. Rucker, and with you being such a well-known gospel artist, yes, you are. I know. She's so humble, just so humble. But yes, she, her reputation speaks for itself. But my question to you, and I know that you are aware of this, although you may not have been intricately involved like some other artists. There's a battle within the Christian community with CCM and gospel music. You know, some of the gospel artists are calling for boycotts of CCM because of their lack of awareness as it relates to racial issues. So my question to you as a gospel artist, how do you respond to that? And Candace, I would like for you to chime in on this as well. So how do you all respond to, you know, that sense of division? Because we're seeing it not just in gospel music, we're seeing it when, you know, someone goes against the grain in business or goes against the grain in, and we're going to talk about the cancel culture in just a second, but I really want to unpack that gospel music CCM situation.
Well, I think I would be a real shallow thinker if I didn't feel like that all the genres of music mattered. I think in gospel, I'm a gospel singer. I don't sing CCM music often, but CCM music is very inspirational to me. So I don't think that we should not have CCM music anymore, or we should ban CCM music. I don't think that's the thing that we should do, because for one, it's encouraging someone, and you have to remember that everybody has an audience, everybody has influence, and so CCM music is very inspirational to an audience. Maybe it's not you, maybe you don't like CCM music, but it doesn't take the significance away from it. It's very significant because it's still gospel, it's still Christian music. And so for me, it's inspirational. I listen to CCM music. So they have an audience. So I think it would be very shallow to say that we don't need it anymore because it's the white part of Christian music.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be very shallow because I'm sorry, I support everything with Black Lives Matter, everything with all of that. I was at George Floyd's funeral,
Mm-hmm.
but they were also playing some CCM music there.
Yeah.
So it means something to someone to
I
hear
understand.
Victory Belongs to Jesus by Todd Delaney. We're not all singing, it's everybody that sings CCM music is not white.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of Black artists that are CCM and have been for years. So for me, it's very inspirational, and I just don't agree with boycotting CCM music. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
And that's my opinion.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, when it comes to the boycotting and the cancel
Yeah.
culture, it's a really funny thing because you know you can't. We're all singing about the same thing. If we're singing about
Thank you.
Christ and whatnot, and for the gospel artists and for most artists, one of the goals that they want to achieve is to cross over because that's where the money is. To be clear, and so there's no form of music or any genre of music that doesn't pull from gospel. So even if there is a CCM artist, there's something gospel connected in there, whether it's the chords or the progression or the way the background singers are arranged or, the arrangement or whatnot, you know what I mean? So it's all connected. So it's kind of funny to say, whether we boycott it or not. However, I don't care if we're singing about frogs. We need to address racism and racial injustice. And that's for in every area of our lives. That's on every single platform. The fact that racism is even up for debate is kind of like the fact we're still having this conversation. And one of the places that we have to have it in is in the church. It just is. From the pulpit all the way to the back door, and especially for gospel artists and for CCM artists, you can't be afraid to have the conversation because these same people that you're telling to lift your hands, they're not being treated the same.
Yeah.
You're not looking at them as, worshipers or whatnot. You're looking at them as far as, who they are. And that goes.
But that would be across the board.
Worship in the gospel is
about. I was about to say that.
That would be across the board. That would be across the board. It has no bearing on just music.
Yeah.
It's everywhere in the church. So the pastor
and so you can't say we're not going to talk about it because I'm this, I'm that. I mean, you have to talk about it. We've been talking about it from years. I've been blocked on quite a few platforms for acknowledging the fact that I think that was racist.
Yeah,
and not being afraid to say it.
And I think a lot
about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and especially if you carry, you know, the belief of a Christian and say that's who you are, then, you know, we need to talk about it. You know,
Yeah.
that
And
comes from the spiritual tree of hate, from what I understand.
and like Dr. like you all said, it's across the board. And
Right.
you know, I'm not one of these black people who say, you know, the white church has it all wrong. We need to go over and correct them. That's not, because there are some things in the black church
We got
that
stuff
are
wrong.
right, exactly.
yeah,
They're
that needs to be
connected
adjusted.
right. They're
Yeah.
connected to slavery. Don't have anything to do with the word of God at all. Don't have anything to do, you know, with us progressing spiritually. And so, you know, as far as the whole boycott thing, like that's gonna be tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some of our favorite gospel songs.
Absolutely.
CCM.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't
start hollering on top of them.
You can't do that. You can't do that.
Clear. Don't make y'all songs. And it's okay.
Absolutely.
That they're not. However, you know what I mean? Like the person who wrote the song should be comfortable having the conversation about why you support Black Lives Matter. Like what that's about.
Yeah. And actually that's a perfect segue, because Tyrus, I want to ask you this question. You know, Dr. Rucker, Candace have, and I'm going to assume Matt and Celeste are supporters of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Absolutely.
So if not, you all can correct me. But so, Tyrus, how do you respond when someone counters with, when you say Black Lives Matter? How do you respond, or what should the response be, in your opinion, when someone says, well, all lives matter or blue lives matter? What do you respond to a person who has that mindset?
Well, I try to brace myself first, because every action deserves a reaction. And I feel that, you know, we tend to, as Americans, as the media tries to make us feel fearful of what, you know, what is to become. And we often, other people try to change the narrative, and we can't change the narrative. At the end of the day, our Black brothers, our Black sisters are getting their doors kicked down, and they're being, you know, criminalized and brutally, you know, killed by the actions of a police officer. If you were in Beverly Hills, that didn't happen. Or if there was the same laws in Beverly Hills, there would be some type of constraint, you know, to no-knock warrants. So the same treatment is not given to us. So we need to matter. You know what I'm saying? We should matter, because we need to be on the forefront, because injustices is happening to us and not to the other race.
That's right.
I'm all for everybody. I love everybody. You know what I'm saying? Do they love me? That's questionable. But, you know, our parents and our ancestors is always I'm all for everybody. I love everybody. You know, love everybody. I don't know if I'm echoing. What's going on?
Yeah, that was you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, you know, our grandparents and everyone has always told us to walk in love, but we've never been taught, you know, we're going to have people that don't like us, that don't love us. How are we going to be able to respond to that? And it's very important that we stick together and understand that we correct every person that feels like all lives matter and they feel like they want to change the narrative. No, you can't change the narrative, because your brother and your sister is not being killed. So we need to stay right where we are, you know, in this time.
And I just think it's very interesting, because the biggest thing that we're saying is that we matter. Like, do you know how
we're not saying we're better than you?
Matter.
No,
you know how simple it is.
We matter.
You know, when people say, well, all lives matter, I'm like, no one's disputing that. But if I stop
we're not.
Matter.
toe too, hey, my toe matter. Let's talk about my toe that got stumped, okay?
Okay.
That's right.
Now, if I say, oh my gosh, that house is on fire, we got to go get water for that house. It's not going to be like, well, what about my house?
Right.
Why does your house?
What about your house is not the one that's on fire?
Right. And I think that what we are understanding is that pro me does not mean anti you.
Right.
Right.
Like, how
That's
is
right.
that? Because I love me and I love people that look like me, does that mean I don't love you? or that you're so insecure that you need to equate your stuff to. And it's like the unfortunate thing is that we're only saying we want equality. We're not saying we want revenge, because revenge is a whole nother conversation.
Right.
A whole nother conversation. We just want the same thing everybody else has. You know,
And something
that we can speak to our children, because when I think about my students, you know, not only are a lot of them African American, I have all races of students and I love all of my kiddos the same, but my kiddos also have mental health diagnoses that the world is not always going to understand. And I'm going to tell you, it looks very interesting when you see a young person that has skin that is chocolate or mocha or cinnamon that also has a mental health diagnosis, and you don't understand mental health, how quick it is for something to happen that no one expected to happen, and the baby doesn't understand what's happening.
And we saw that with the story now that has resurfaced with Elijah McClain.
Absolutely.
And I think
these things have been happening. That's what's crazy. They've been happening because so many people don't understand mental health. And if so many people don't understand why so many African Americans have mental health disorders, but we've been predisposed to it due to the trauma. I mean, like,
exactly. And that's exactly what I was getting ready to say. And Matt mentioned it earlier. Like, and I don't think that we as a community, you know, whether that's your household, your family, your church family, or whatnot, I don't think we acknowledge how traumatizing
absolutely
this is. Now, life is traumatic as is.
Right,
dealing with deaths of your family members, your mother, that's trauma. You know, having to be raised by your grandmother, trauma is trauma.
Right.
You know, having to watch someone die on camera, you know, and the conditions of which they died is like it's all traumatic, and because we almost become immune to it.
Right.
And what happens is it's almost like a pot that's boiling, and when it explodes, then it's like y'all need to calm down. It's like I'm asking y'all,
like we just turned up the heat a little bit. Don't
you know.
Now.
Right.
Like it's going to explode, you know. And and you know, Matt made it good. He's like, you know, by the time I'm seeing this George Floyd thing, like I'm furious. It's because you've been watching it constantly.
It's been
for the last 10 years.
Right. It's been
and the fact that it's not new to us. This isn't new. It's just being recorded.
That was actually going to be my next question. And we know that the Civil Rights Act was passed in the 60s. And most people, I've heard some conservative politicians make this argument that, well, racism ceased to exist because we've had a Black president for 8 years. So my next question is, why hasn't having a Black president for 8 years, why wasn't that enough to realistically alleviate racism? Because I'm going to tell you,
I mean, that's
it took 400 years to get here. 8 years ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
Hold on, guys, because I want to hear everybody. Go ahead, Matt. Tom mentioned it. It's 400 years of suffering.
Right.
I want folks to understand this. Now I say this. I got a platform to say it. Now I'll say it. I want folks to understand this. You can take every statue down you want to take down. We are still owed reparations for all of the suffering for all these years, all of the head start. You can't let someone get a 5-mile head start on me and tell me to catch up to them. We've been dealing with that for years.
That's right.
For years. And to come in and give us a trinket and say, hey, we're gonna give y'all a black president, which y'all still, by the way, while he was there, disenfranchised him, you marginalized him, you wouldn't let him pass anything. Then as soon as he got out, you redid everything. So that argument about 8 years having a president is null and void with me. We still have the same issues that we were dealing with when he got in office.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
30 years before that, you're still dealing with stuff that Dr. King was still trying to get situated, which goes back to reparations, by the way. And we're still fighting these same battles, fighting the battle of having to work extra hard when you go to work. You gotta go above and beyond everything you do, which goes back.
And I want to. Anybody else want to respond to that? Because I want to add another part to that question. Anybody want to respond to that?
Well, yeah. Well, understanding too that the role of the president and how it affects us. There needs to be these children almost need to be re-educated as to how the election process works. Which officials actually affect your life. And of course, we were able to see racism on stage, like in full color, when Obama was elected. Like by the next morning, there was a picture of him as a monkey on the stage. Like, you know what I mean? And it's almost like you almost feel like Donald Trump is our punishment. Like, oh, y'all want to
hold on, because I want to address something. Spike Lee said this. He said Donald Trump is a direct response to us having a black president for 8 years.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with him. I think, I definitely agree with him because
laugh,
black
president.
I forgot who mentioned on the panel earlier. Somebody said that it's revenge, and I think that's what triggered a lot of folk. Is they figure, oh well, they're gonna treat us the same way we treated them. When that's not the case. Black folk just want to be able to live and enjoy life and just
everybody else has.
Yeah, that's just be like be married. The problem here, and this is why when I discuss this with people, I tell people we're at a point in time. First, the 400 years ended last year. By the way, I've been telling everybody it's for 1619, 2019. We're in 2020, so a lot of stuff is playing itself out now. But we're in a time now where we really need to hit home and really start going after policies, because like I told y'all, we can take down every statue you want to take down, but until we get policies enacted that can get things done,
Matt, hold on, because Candace wants to respond.
Well, no, I was agreeing with him. The statues and all that, changing the street name. Like, stop tossing us bones. You didn't think it was racist.
Yeah, well, the thing is, and I try so hard
let's
to not
address what needs to be.
I mean, how many more streets?
Stop putting band-aids on the wound. Stop placing us.
Well, my, and I try so hard. Y'all pray for me because I try hard not to give my commentary and just ask questions, but it's not working out for me. But
oh God,
what happens is when you change a street to Black Lives Matter, the only thing that's going to happen is a black man is going to get killed on the street that says Black Lives Matter. Until, like Matt said, there's policies and laws that are put in place. I'm a firm believer. Yeah, I'm a firm believer that you can't legislate a person's heart. But you can put things in place to keep them from carrying out what is in their heart.
That's right.
I agree.
That's
So
right.
what we see is people having heart issues, and just because we have a little bit more melanin in our skin, or whatever the case may be. So it's racism is just a disgusting, ugly thing altogether. And I want to segue into another question, a more general question, and we're going to be wrapping up in about 8 minutes. So, a more general question when it comes to those of you who are in the arts, Tyrus, Dr. Rucker, Candace, Matt, Celeste, all of you. There's a sense of expectations that African Americans are held to, not just in the arts, but professionally and all of that. So my question is, have you all experienced a racial divide in your respective fields? I know we touched on it earlier, but I want to get more specific about that. Have you already experienced racism, be it, you had to perform somewhere and you could sense that there was a little bit of discriminatory behavior going on, or whatever the case may be?
I would definitely say that as a performer, I was the youngest African American that headlined Cherry Blossom Festival for a couple of years, and I did see a little bit of, after I started to show myself approved, which was the first year. It was very low. It was a very low compensation stipend. And the second year, once I started to draw a bigger crowd, I was, just looking at the atmosphere and just, saying, okay, next year, once I headline, I want to be able to, to be able to come to her and let her know that I want, a little bit more for performing, because now it's looking like, 500 people are coming out. And they said, well, no, sir, we can't pay you that because, we don't have the funds. But you bring in a national artist or a known white artist and pay them thousands of dollars, but pay me pennies on the dollar. And I felt like that was, I wasn't gonna be able to accept that. And we have to stand behind, each other as artists to understand we're not gonna accept the pennies that you give us when you're going to pay another person of different race. And just like with BET, colorism is a big thing, but that's another different day.
But what
I do want to shift the
conversation. What it is that you're saying, like everyone is going to have to be on the same page you're on, because if you don't accept it, the other black person can't accept it either.
Yeah, exactly.
And
you know what I mean? So once you say this is what it costs, this is just what it costs.
You're right.
You can't say and not be
yeah, and not be afraid to walk away from what you make it seem like a big opportunity, because it goes back to
all got to get on the same page.
Yeah, and
it can change everyone's expectations. But if you do it, but everyone has to be on the same page. We all agreed that the answer's no.
Okay, so
it's like, well, I'll be John. I thought we said no.
Right.
So it never ends.
Right.
So I want to put a pin in that particular topic because I have a couple of questions that I want to ask as it relates to creativity and mental health. And it's no secret, when you talk about the Vincent Van Goghs and the Amy Winehouse and the Heath Ledgers and the Kanye West, the Terry Crews of the world. Why is it that creatives deal with such a strong presence of mental illness? Like, why is that such a prevalent issue in our society?
I don't think it's just really so much as with creators. I just think that creators have a unique way of figuring out how to cope with what they got going on. A lot of people don't have a way to cope, so you don't see it coming from them as much. Doesn't mean it's not happening as much across the board. And I think as creators, there are expectations, like you were speaking of just a few moments ago, put on you that sometimes are not put on other people. As an educator, I can't show up to something, with a beautiful, head wrap and all this other stuff. There's going to be a certain expectation. As a female spoken word artist, I can't show up on a stage and be prepared, expect to get everything I'm supposed to get if I just speak in the way that I want to speak. Because sometimes you really are mad because you have a reason to be mad based on what they're giving you, but you gotta make sure you put that in a cute little box, so you still get exactly what you're supposed to get in those moments. So I don't think that mental health only happens on a larger scale with artists and creators. I just think that because we're out there in the public and people see us more, that people then find a way to monopolize off of that, which leads to more mental health issues, right? Because if they're not paying you what you deserve, if they're treating you unfairly, if they're making you stay at a low budget hotel when they're paying someone else stay at a bigger hotel, if they don't take care of your travel costs, all of those things go into effect.
And my next question for Dr. Rucker and Tyrus and Candace, and like she was saying, there's a lot that goes into and most times creators are okay with singing in their basement or singing, in a place where no one hears them, or painting, whatever. And what happens with creatives
because it's our passion.
Yeah, your passion will always create an audience. It never fails. It will always create an audience. So most creative, they are not prepared for, most people just want to sing. I'm quite sure, Dr. Rucker, sometimes you be like, look, y'all ain't got to lay out no roses. Y'all ain't got to do. I just want to sing, do what I love, and go home. Like forget all the extra stuff. I just want to do what I love and go home. But there's a whole different world as relates to what creators have to deal with. So my next question is, how do you as creatives keep from getting overwhelmed with the day-to-day demands of your gift? And what suggestions do you have for people who see the limelight and think that this is where it is, but what advice would you give them as relates to their mental well-being?
Balance.
Lots of self-care.
Balance.
Yep, absolutely.
You gotta have balance. As much as
You
on
don't
stage,
have balance.
that's how much you need to be laying down. As much as you are in the studio, that's how much you need to, have your head in the book. You know what I mean? And I think too, with a lot of artists, specifically, we can say gospel, with artists in general, they're just not educated about this craft that they're so passionate about. You know what I mean? Understanding, what the numbers mean and what how the business is actually ran and how to separate yourself from your brand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and for gospel artists, it's the only genre of music where you're expected to act a certain way. And in any other genre, secular, or actor, actress, or whatnot, it's all about how you look. It's more about your image.
Absolutely.
Gospel is more so what you're doing. You know what I mean?
That's
and
right.
those are two. It's a lot of pressure to put on someone, and hold them to expectations that are just sometimes.
Well, the pressure is real. It's real. The pressure of being,
has given
of having to
your audience
of having to be
the opportunity to be a part of your life. Now you control how much they know, But coming up, we didn't know anything about Eddie Murphy. We knew he was a comedian, but we couldn't follow his day to day. Now we know Jill Scott's favorite snack. It's crazy how it works, and we feel entitled to it. The fans feel entitled to it, and a lot of times you don't know how to cut it off and say it's too much. I don't need to have that in my system today. I don't need to watch the news today.
I know Dr. Rucker.
Acknowledge your own personal level of tolerance and acknowledge it.
And I know Dr. Rucker wanted to respond to that as well.
Well, I just think that, like she said, creating a balance is key, and self-care is key. But that's with any job or
absolutely
it's across the
Just being
board
black.
still. And you have to, and especially for artists, as Bishop Jake said, bright lights are hot.
Mm-hmm.
So people are always looking at you. They're always sizing you up. You always have something going on.
Right.
Everybody, you have to live up to everybody's expectation and everything. So you have to really, you got to sometimes get off social media.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes take a break from everything so that relax. Because realistically, creatives' minds never relax.
And
they're always going. There's always something going on.
Right.
So you have to, self-care is everything. Everything. And you have to back up and back off of everything and everybody to be able to deal with what's going on in your head.
Absolutely.
I know my mind never sleeps.
And so meditation is also a great key.
Meditation is everything.
Relaxing, because this is a very tough industry. This is one of the toughest that I've ever been a part of. Self-care is a must, like Miss Damika said. And if you get so consumed with wanting to sell out a show, wanting everybody to love you, wanting to be on every radio station, you're not in this. You're not in the right industry, because you're here because this is your passion. And if this is your passion, you're going to keep through the highs and the lows. If God bless you with this, you're going to have to be able to go through the trials and tribulations that comes with this gift that you have. So much is given, much is required. And right now, we're in a bind. Some people are losing their minds. Some people are losing their house. Some people are losing their have lost their jobs. Us as creatives we don't have a lot of creatives. I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of creatives don't have another stream of income. Fortunately, that's not me, because I'm an entrepreneur, but a lot of creatives don't have another source of income. So that's another conversation that I definitely want to have, not on this platform, but
because when it comes to creatives and financial literacy, that's an entirely different conversation.
But it's still
It sure is.
creativity. It's still a part of what comes with it.
Absolutely.
When everything, when stuff like this happen, a pandemic happens, we can't perform on stage. We're not getting booked. So what are you doing?
That's right.
Being
That's
able
right.
to sing? This is a PTSD situation. On top of seeing a man being killed by a police officer and your sister being killed by a police officer, like it's just so many things coming from all different directions.
And so I want to get to my next three last questions. Dr. Rucker, you had the opportunity to sing at George Floyd's funeral service. So can you just tell us, what was that experience like? What was the energy like in the room? What was going through your mind as you were on that stage looking at this historical moment take place in real time?
And the only thing that I could think of at the time that I was singing was trying to bring some form of comfort to the family, because these are real people. We're watching it on TV,
right?
but they are real. They have to deal with the fact that their brother, their dad, their, he was killed. He was murdered. And so if we were there for any other reason other than to bring comfort to the family, then we were there for the wrong reason. So my reasoning for being and for accepting Kurt Carr's call to sing at the funeral was, I prayed about it because it was not something that I wanted to do. Listening to Matt say he was looking at the video, which is something I never did. I've not seen it yet because the way I'm set up, that thing, I've carried it without even seeing it. Without ever watching the video, just knowing in my mind what people are saying and that it happened.
Yeah.
It tore me apart. I cried for days. Just housing it here. So when I got there, there was a lot of emotions going on, but I could feel that we were all there for the same reason. And that was to bring support to the family. And you've seen people from all walks of life. There was no particular religion, everybody was there, and they were all there for the same reason, to give support, to give our prayers, and to bring healing and some type of comfort to the family.
Okay. And we appreciate you. You did an awesome job.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And I know that
I was very nervous.
Yes, I could feel through the screen that you were there to provide comfort.
Zach, I also wanted to kind of add in that I had the honor to attend Rayshard Brooks' funeral.
Wow.
And I witnessing a historical moment such as that, but still such a tragic moment.
Yes.
It was the atmosphere of tired people. My people are tired. We're tired of people killing us and not having being taken accountability for. And the pastor said something that stuck out to me. He said, we're dealing with two diseases, and that's COVID-19 and racism 1619. And until we change, the way, until police reform is in action and we change some policies, we're going to be back here again. We're going to have another hashtag, and it's just, it was very sad. There were so many politicians that were there that were so heartbroken, and they were crying, and people were crying out for help, that please let this be our last time going to a funeral where we have to bury our brother, due to police brutality. So it was very tough. It was very hard.
And I want to end on a more positive note, because we can carry this all night.
Yeah.
But my last two questions. So if you all could go forward or backwards into a moment to witness a historic moment, where would you all go? if you could go back in time to witness a historic moment, it could be musical, it could be a political moment, it could be a moment of tragedy, whatever. What moment would you like to go back and sort of look at in real time?
I'll go first. I would say the night that the night that Obama was elected, it was a different type of pride that we felt, you know, and even if it was only for a second, we felt that we were as important as everyone else, you know, and that, you know, we had a very strong representative. Now, whatever happened after that happened, but that night was impactful especially for our ancestors, for our grandparents, for our great grandparents, you know, who lived through civil rights, who've lived through, you know, street lynchings and dogs being, you know, attacking them and whatnot, to come to a place where, you know, their hero Martin Luther King was taken from them, and to be able to see that, you know, before they transitioned, they were able to see a black man in charge, if you will. So that was that's a big moment for me. Big moment.
Okay, Matt, what moment would you go back to if you had to go back and take some pictures of a moment in real time?
Real time, it's probably the death of Martin Luther King. I've always been intrigued by that photo, where they were pointing to where the gunman shot, and it's also main reason it's an iconic point. It's a turning point that led into pretty much is what we're still dealing with today. But it also serves as a reminder that the job is still not done, and I have to keep telling people this over and over. Civil rights movement was what, 50, 60 years ago? I mean, people act like we've been, you know, that's been something for like 400 years, 300 years. No, we're still fighting these battles today. These battles are being fought day in and day out. And as I said before, we have to continuously bang the drum. Policy. Exactly. You're not going to change people's heart, but you can change policy all day. That can happen all day long. I mean, we can go no further than Germany. When that was over, they instituted policy. That's part of the reason. Go ahead, Zach.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wanted to get Tara's and my other two ladies' answer to that question. A historical moment that you would go back to and witness in real time.
I'm not sure. I have many for civil rights movement, but I want to stick to musically. And one of the things that sticks out in my mind is, as far as a proud moment would be for me, is if I had been in the audience the day that they called Aretha Franklin to sing in Italian for the Italian opera singer.
Yeah, I remember that. Is
just so remarkable to me.
That was huge, yeah.
For somebody that looks like me. And that just lets me know that I can do anything that I set my mind to do. You know, because that was just unreal for her to stand there and sing that song.
Note for note.
Supposed to sing.
Yeah, note for note.
No, oh my God, it was incredible. Yeah. I could go on and on, but you know, that's just one of the proud moments that I have as far as history is concerned.
Okay. Tyrus, and we'll close with Celeste.
I think I would go back to when Whitney Houston was singing. Well, no, you know what? I think I would want to be in the era where Heal the World was created. I would have loved to been a part of, you know, just a fly on the wall when Heal the World with Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston and all these, like, I don't know if it was hundreds, but I had the poster in my room and it was just hundreds of artists that had just came together. It was an inspirational time for me just to see all those great icons together in one room for a message to send out to the world that we need to heal the world and make it a better place. And if we can get back to making music like that, I think we can transcend generations and we can come together at some point.
Okay, and Celeste?
For me, just because I'm such a nerd when it comes to this poetry world, I would go back to when Nikki Giovanni was a college student and everyone was doubting her ability to create. And she actually wrote her first book as a college student because that's what made me write my first book in college. Because when she wrote that book, it was very much like, cotton candy on a rainy day. She was really just being so bold and blunt. And because she's just naturally going to say what she wants to say, and I've been blessed to meet her several times, and she's just that way. And so she inspired me to write my first book in college. And I was like, Nikki Giovanni did it. Everyone was asking me, was it going to have staples in it? And I was thinking that back then, like, I wanted to ask her these same kind of stupid questions. Of course, it's not going to have staples in it, But I mean, I just would go back to that time period and just be able to hear her on stage, sharing her poetry and releasing that first book back then.
Okay. So, and we're going to end this for tonight. I really want to say thank you to everyone who's on this platform and panel. All of you are doing great things. All of you, do anybody want to give any plugs for their work that they have coming up? I know Dr. Rucker has a single out. Do you want to tell us more about that so our listening audience can go and get it? And
Absolutely. I have a single that we just released, and it was actually, I recorded it a couple of years ago, and the song is entitled "It Is Well," and we released it because of all the things that are happening right now. I just wanted to release something in the earth that would give hope for the present situations and the current things that are going on. We have so much that we're dealing with, and the song just says, I've learned to be a base. Life has taught me to say that all is well with me. And it goes on to say, I'll trust in you, meaning God, come what may.
Now you can sing a little bit of it if you want to.
No, no, I'm not going to sing. But you guys can, I really would love for you all to go in and purchase it and download it tonight. And we do still have new music coming out. Hopefully, very, very soon. I can't say when because so many things are going on right now, but hopefully very, very soon. But if you want to hear something that will be inspirational to you, download It Is Well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Candace, anything with Clue Entertainment or?
Yeah, Clue. I'll be relaunching Clue next month, and have some exciting news that I'll be ready to share with you all very, very soon.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
Matt.
Yep, I had two pieces that recently was published. For the one was the New York Times. It was about the experiences of banking while Black, and also had another article that I photographed for was talking about the effect of COVID on Black-owned businesses. So make sure you check those out.
Okay, and Celeste?
I'm actually in the process of finishing my book, and it's called Pink Poems, and it's poetry from the feminine perspective during these times. That comes out in September, and of course, my mentoring program, Chief Speaks Academy, we get started back up in August. So we're actually accepting applications right now for 9 to 12-year-old little girls. So if y'all know someone who's interested, let me know.
Okay, and Taurus.
Yes, man. I'm working on my EP, Unorthodox, and I'm super excited. This is the long anticipated EP. So many of my fans have been rocking with me for a long time. My supporters have been rocking with me forever, and I'm finally getting a EP out. So guys, it will be out at the end of summer, beginning of fall. So
awesome.
Super excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.
You're a beast, though.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Again, thank you all so much. I hope that everyone have a good night, and we will definitely have to do this in person soon once everything blows over.
Yes.
Never been to Kansas City, so we may have to take a flight.
Yeah. Come on.
Everybody,
I got strong backgrounds, okay?
Everybody, be safe. Everybody wear your mask.
Yeah, everybody wear your mask.
That's right. Will do.
All right.
So thank you guys so much, and everybody. Yes, everybody have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank y'all.